Andrea, how are you feeling today?
Hi. Very, very good. Thank you for the invite and welcome to Rhino Entertainment offices.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us.
You're
We have very
welcome.
nice offices.
Thank you.
So it's been a pleasure to be here today as well.
That's good. Good.
Andrea, this is not your first podcast, right? You were invited for another similar podcast.
Yes, I had a short cameo on iGaming FM. We had spoken about back then, like the remote and hybrid way of working. So it's my second official podcast in reality.
All right. So you're not the first timer. That's good.
Yes.
Andrea, you've been in HR for quite a while now, and even your studies are very much related to HR. Where did this start from? This love for HR and this intrigue in the area?
It all started from actually a credit at university we had, where we were given a good overview of all the different departments in the industry. So it was, if you took a look at marketing, HR, finance, because as I studied more like a management course. So it gave us a lot of insight into each different area, what you could do, what the different roles are, the different salaries, insights. So it was a really insightful credit that we had. And HR and what like it was all about and what you can really grow into really intrigued me. And after graduating, I felt that in my course I had to do something else, like to specialize. And I decided also to do a master's in HR straight away to continue consolidating what I did. Then after getting my master's, I said, like, now I really need to find a job in HR. And that's what led me to recruitment and working on the agency side. And after 3 years doing that, then I became more like an in-house business partner, HR business partner, people and culture. So then like my career kept on evolving within an HR role.
And you're quite specialized from what I understand in HR. So for those of the listeners who are not in HR, what is your specialization and what do you take? How is your day-to-day basically?
I mean, if you speak to many HR people, they say that no day is the same. So it's a very dynamic role in itself. I mean, you're dealing with people, with businesses, so it's a very dynamic and fast-paced way of working. But my passion is more towards like culture, the people and culture side, and learning and development. So it's an amalgamation of those two. Generally, in the size of company that like we are in my current role, you need to do a bit of a 360 role. So you're touching the full 360, the full HR life cycle. And then obviously, I mean, have different projects and areas that you will keep on focusing on. But my passion would be more towards like learning and development, people development, and really seeing people grow and develop within their role and being the best versions of themselves. So really building on people experience, people development, and making it all work together for the success of the business and our people.
Yes, the HR is the bridge between the people and the business, and at least that's how it should be, I believe. So we are the middle persons between the business, the growth of the business and the people as well.
It's constantly a balancing act. I mean, you need to find the balances between what is in the interest of the business to make it effective to work, to have the right talent, develop, and also understand the needs of our people and how we can really, truly, not just like on paper, on employer branding, really create that amazing people experience where people enjoy coming to work and feel that they are developing as well and contributing to their development and also to the company's growth in that area.
From your experience and in your opinion, why should companies work on developing and cultivating their culture in an organization?
Yeah, I mean, culture, I mean, you can have a number of fancy words on the wall or some ethos that you work on, but when you really understand what your culture is, what the values of the organization is, you can really work around that to really push forward the rest of the business priorities. So having a culture and understanding what they really are is something that you live and breathe every day.
How can you understand what your culture is? What sort of exercise does the company to do to understand what their culture is and how they can control that sort of?
I mean, culture starts evolving and developing without you even knowing. So as soon as you start recruiting your first person, 2 people, 3 people, and the team start growing, the culture is growing at the same time. And it's really made out of, I mean, the ethos of the business, what you're going out to build, and also the people that you have on the team. They make the big difference. Then there comes a stage when the company keeps on developing that you need to understand as well what our values really are, to really define and create that tangible aspect of what the culture is.
Mm-hmm.
So it really starts off by understanding what the values are and having workshops together with all the teams and building on the values and together understanding and deciding on what they
Mm-hmm.
are and having an alignment on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really starts from there in reality.
And from my experience, it will help you then recruit the right people for the company as well. I think it creates a better fit within the companies, so which has in return a positive impact on the retention of the people as well, because they feel more at ease, more. There is a greater sense of belonging from the person, so the retention tends to be higher.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, this depends on the stage that your business is at. So if you're a startup, generally you'd recruit people that you know by word of mouth. You bring
dynamic.
on people that you feel that can really add that value. But as you keep on developing and your teams grow even further, you're going to even add more structure to your recruitment process and align cultural competencies and values to the recruitment process, what we call culture fit.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that the people that we bring on board can not only do the job that we have, they have the skill set, but also will add that value from a cultural point of view and fit our teams. Because, I mean, the worst thing you can have is that toxic culture, a culture that you don't want to work in, a culture that you don't feel that you can form part of or align to. So it's really, I mean, the culture fit is a very important aspect, and it's something that generally not only HR who are involved in the recruitment process need to understand, but also the hiring manager.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that amalgamation of both understanding what we're really looking for.
Mm-hmm. And that does give you the insight and ability to market for the right people, because you would know where to look for the right candidates and what to attract as well. So that is very a good insight to have.
Definitely. I mean, the market pool and talent pool is becoming
quite
very
saturated.
tight and saturated, especially within an industry like iGaming and many industries in Malta, to be fair.
True.
I mean, it's becoming also very, very tight in terms of talent. So it also makes you think of, okay, maybe they don't have the direct skill set that we need, and we're at a mature level as a business to bring on someone and invest, share skills and develop them. So it really opens up the pool if we really understand that we have the culture fit, we have the right attitude, we have the right performance level that we're looking for, and then we can keep on investing in someone to become more like a school or an academy within the business itself. So it opens up another layer of opportunity for talent, and also giving the opportunity to people to join the business and add their value and learn a skill that maybe they haven't learned at school in reality or at university. So you can really give that platform. If someone has the culture fit, has the right attitude, can align to where we want to be, to our goals. So understanding again those values, building competency frameworks around them, can really help us to have a great culture.
Yeah. Andrea, on a personal level, you've mentioned that you've changed a couple of jobs, as it happens with every career. What were the greatest lessons on a personal level that you've learned and that you took away from each employment?
I started off my career in aviation, so I was a cabin crew with Air Malta. And even that role as well was my first full-time job in reality. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a good 3 years. I did my master's at the same time, so I managed to balance everything. Back then, I also used to do, I used to train wrestling, like when go for competitions abroad. So it was a nice balancing act of work, life, sports, and everything. But then when I got my master, I really wanted to say, like, listen, now I need to really get that experience in our field, in the field of HR. And back then, it wasn't, the job market was different. You wouldn't find a job. I remember even like when we had graduated, you wouldn't find a job straight away or before. It was a different job market. So finding the first opportunity in HR wasn't easy. You send a lot of applications, get a lot of rejections. Sometimes don't even get rejections out of an emails.
Because, but contrary to popular belief, if you get a master's in HR, you don't necessarily have the experience to introduce yourself in HR. So you still have to have a necessary amount of experience working somewhere.
Definitely.
Not necessarily in HR, but experiencing that job, the day-to-day dynamic of a working environment. So a master's course or a course in HR will help you understand and appreciate the theoretical frameworks of how HR
That's
functions or how it should function by the book. But you still need to have that practical feel, I would say, of working somewhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, in reality, it's true. So, I mean, you do get your masters, but that work experience won't give you another layer of experience and level. So, although I had a master, I did not have the experience I needed, and I knew that. And back then as well, internships were not a big thing.
Yeah.
So I was willing even to go into do an internship for free. I really had that eagerness to get into the industry. And I could have stayed in my full-time job. I mean, no one was telling me like I had to leave. And then I got like the big break, I would say, and I had applied with Connect. Back then it was a client relationship executive that I had joined us, and in reality it was a recruitment executive. So it was my first step into recruitment, but I believe that Connect used to do recruitment in the right way. So you'd learn not just recruitment, but a bit of a broader scope, get to know more about HR. They have an employment law course that they would offer you. So it was really like a bit of an HR school at the same time. Apart from you learning how to deal with clients, deal with candidates, the
negotiations,
the interview process, getting to know about how competency frameworks works, the hexaco principle of personality trait. So you get to know really about HR.
They still use it? I'm not sure if they
I'm not
still
sure. I haven't done it.
I'm not sure about that.
But it's so you get to know know a bit more about the psychology behind things and working with people who have experience in HR.
Yeah.
And after 3 years there, I felt that like it was time to. I used to feel that in recruitment, you used to get someone from point A to B, but then not see the full development of them. So that is where, as well, my keen interest is really see people grow within a business and see them through their full employment life cycle. And I felt that it was time to like look for an in-house role. And that's why I landed my first job as a HR business partner. And that as well was within a company at a time when you do a bit of a 360 role. So you'd have your recruitment you still do, supporting the business, HR admin, payroll, you mentioned. So it was a really 360 role, but always focusing more on the learning and development and person development and people development side. And that's how I kept on. I mean, you go to seminars, conferences, read up, and really apply what you've learned in your master's to work and get to really feel and live working within an HR role. And I was lucky to join at companies at different times where there were like culture projects kicking off, understanding and defining what the culture is of the business, building learning models. So really it was the opportunity to build certain things from scratch with a solid basis, but building projects from scratch and kicking them off with the right guidance and support also of mentors with experience who can really support you in growing and passing on certain knowledge and experience, both within the team and even within the business. There are very knowledgeable people who had worked in leadership roles for a number of years. So you get to that exposure. And I also got what I felt I was missing, like that international exposure. So in the gaming industry, there was, I mean, you work with very multicultural and very dynamic organizations with offices in different locations as well, with very different, I mean, we recruit a lot of expats from different places around the world in reality. So you get that international dynamic within a Malta setup.
How is it different on the day-to-day? And you've both worked in different companies, both international and both local. How is the general feel different from one another?
I mean, you can feel the diversity. So, I mean, if I'm working within a business where we're generally recruiting Maltese and we're all relatively the same age groups, roughly, it lacks that depth of diversity. Working within that international dynamic, and you're getting that full diversity feel, working with people from different backgrounds, different experiences, because again, the iGaming industry back then was even younger, and it's still a young industry in reality. So there are a lot of skills that you can't learn at school, you need to learn within the industry. So you get really people from different walks of life who come into an industry and can make a career for themselves within a direct and a very clear role and position.
Is it as hard to manage the diversity? Yes. So the idea I think out there is that managing diversity is a bit challenging. Is it as hard to manage diversity at work?
I think when you're working with an international environment and you embrace the diversity, it's not that hard to manage. It almost comes natural. And again, you need to remove that level and have the right structure to remove that level of bias and during recruitment and these things. But the industry is so dynamic in itself and multicultural that it comes natural that there's that dynamic. Plus, there's a twist of certain markets as well that you'd operate in that then you'd require certain knowledge of certain languages and backgrounds.
Right. I don't think I ever worked in a... No, not yet. I haven't worked in an international company. I've spoke to many people, so I'm not familiar with that feeling. Obviously, I've worked with people who are not locals, but not in an international company. So that's why I was curious about that. Andrea, earlier you mentioned that, and we were discussing this before, balancing different things at the same time, both obviously at work and even outside the place of work.
Yeah.
And you were going to share with me a strategy that you've developed over the years of how you can have a more balanced work-life balance in a way.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, really, to find that balance. And I think it's always very personal to find the right approach. But I'm that kind of person. Do you speak to the people around with that? They're like, I want things done yesterday and not today. So that was something that was ingrained like in my personality. But through work, I've learned to handle that. And I think that was one of the biggest learning curves, like the growth experience that I had since I've started working, in HR in reality, and working, and balancing the work-life balance in reality. But what I need to learn is that even if a project comes or a task comes, you don't need to finish it there and then. There's a day of work that you have and you can commit and be efficient in it itself, but some things can wait. So you need to really filter through what comes in, see what can wait, what can't wait. And some things it actually makes sense to wait and reflect and think and not just give an answer there and then. Some things can wait. So I've created techniques which work for me. Like shared notes on your laptop and on your phone. So if you're going to sleep, and usually before I sleep, like my brain shuts down. So as soon as I'm going to say, I forgot to do that, I forgot to send that email, I forgot to send that calendar invite, I just put down a note. Then I know the next morning I can get to it. So that's a technique that helped me find that balance, to find that way of working. But also that realization that not everything needs to be done yesterday. Some things need to be done yesterday and we need to do them and push them through. But other things, if you reflect upon them, if you say, listen, let's set up a meeting, let's create a dialogue around it, let's understand a bit more what we can do. And perhaps not be that, yes, sir, I'm going to do it now, but get in that critical thinking, that growth mindset to understand, okay, what can we do differently? Does this need to be done this way? Does it need to be done now? Can I wait maybe, can I wait till next week or tomorrow or tomorrow afternoon? So it's really understanding, gaining a better understanding of how the business works, what the priorities are, challenging when you need to challenge what needs to be done, and using the tools around us and technology, embracing it to really make us effective and work well. And there are a number of techniques. You can sometimes, although maybe you still want to be efficient and get your inbox cleaned, you can delay emails that you send out, like send an email in the afternoon, send in the morning, because generally, especially maybe if you're coming back from a holiday, you have an inbox which is very full, you start replying, generally maybe from the top, because it might be the most urgent. But if you start replying to them all at the same time, you're going to get all the replies generally at the same time as well. So if you manage to space them out a bit by delaying the send out, you're going to really space out as well.
And we have the option now, so both Outlook or Gmail.
Outlook, even Gmail, they all have it now. Yes,
they all have it. The scheduled send, so you can do it.
It helps, it helps because you have thousands of things that you need to catch up with. But it's more like managing that, because before when you were a student, maybe worked a few summer jobs here and there, maybe some other things, you would manage generally to do things quite efficiently if you wanted to. But the more that, of course, you have your layer of life commitments, your work, which becomes quite demanding. The more you grow within your role, the more you're going to have more responsibility. You really need to manage that, because I think if you don't manage it, you can risk getting burnt out. Especially if you have that real aptitude to like always push goals and really want to always achieve and exceed expectations. So that's something that I had to learn. Maybe I learned it the hard way, because it was a bit tough at the beginning. But then when you find the right balance and the right systems that work for you, I think it's key to sustain and then your development.
Well, I think two things that I took out from what you said. One of them is that we have to appreciate that it takes time for us to develop certain strategies, and sometimes we have to go through the storm in order then to settle in when we're starting off. Because I share a similar journey at work as well, because I tend to be quite eager to contribute from the get-go, but then when in your younger or early stages of work, you are not able to differentiate what is the priority and what is a lesser priority. And you would need to go through that and learn the hard way to see, okay, this can wait, but this cannot wait, because obviously the question would be, what are the things that can wait and that cannot wait? And that comes with experience. That you can't magically know what can wait and what cannot wait. Obviously, each company operates things differently, so a certain company might prioritize certain things over others. But again, the experience then kicks in because you would be more well-versed in reading the flow, I would say, reading the flow of the conversation, reading the flow of the business, and that comes with experience. So no course, nothing can help you go through it.
And you know, like if the CEO is going to get in touch with you, they need something. I mean, you know when it's time to drop down everything and say that's today this is what I'm going to focus on. So that comes with experience, but it also comes. No one can. I mean, you can get experience and grow, but. If you really seek out people who can act as your mentors and coaches within the organization, it doesn't need to be your manager directly. It can be someone who maybe can give you certain experience that they have. Sometimes ask for help. Go reach out. Say, listen, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do? Do you think this is this priority, or do you think I'm looking at it in the wrong light? Or is there something I'm not seeing? Then because if there's something that's happening in the business I'm not fully aware of at this stage. So it's always good to ask why and ask question and then really understand what you're being asked to do as well, because that helps for you to understand the wider perspective and also understand how to manage priorities at the end of the day.
And even you mentioned energy levels as well. So when we're it's not about energy levels, I think so. So let me explain myself. When we're younger, we're able to handle multiple things at one go. So we're a bit disorganized, but organized at the same time, I would say, or at least from my experience. So I didn't used to take notes. I didn't used to schedule things in my calendar. You remember when we worked together. Yeah. So, but now I work on a complete different workflow because I have more things going on, but not necessarily more things going on. I think, and you made me reflect on this, the things at stake are higher. When you're younger, you're very careful because there's no loss. But when you grow older, there is perhaps reputation, perhaps your status, perhaps your family or dependents. So there are more things at stake if you do a mishap.
Exactly.
And it comes with a price because it's very anxiety provoking at times as well. So we have to manage the anxiety that comes with it as well. So that is my thought on this. Not sure what you think about it.
And I think, I mean, the carefree aspect comes when you're younger, that sometimes you don't think things twice. So now you need to really reflect and think things through. And I think like when we're young, we're all a bit maybe more, I don't know, had that drive to push it. It's okay, we can do it. Now you think things through more, you reflect more, and really choose what maybe battles you should take and what you shouldn't take, and reflect and say, okay, I think this is worth my time, this is not worth my time. So yes, it's a balancing act, as we said, but I don't know, somehow you mentioned about like reminders and diaries. When I was young, I did not have a diary. I think that's memory related, but or is there so much things that I need to store in my mind now? But
somehow I used to remember every appointment.
Everything I used to remember.
Today it's not about that I can't remember, but the calendar is so efficient and so handy.
Maybe it made us lazy.
That's what
because I put everything into my calendar, reminders.
So and I was always a bit busy. I had always many things going on. So, but I used to remember everything. So I think we got a little bit lazy.
I think I mean, it's efficient to have them there because you don't forget. But
we embrace technology.
We embrace it too much.
We embrace it too much then. But that's so the brain operates. The brain is there to think creatively, so it's not very good and efficient at organizing lists and ticking things. So that is actually what is recommended, that we leave the brain to think in a creative way and to
Exactly.
solve problems. And we take the lists outside. So one thing that you mentioned is that before going to bed, and when you start thinking creatively, ideas start popping up. So when an idea starts popping up, you insert it in the notes. Because the brain is not wired to think in checklists or to remember certain stuff. It has a very good memory recollection, but it's not there to its main function is not that. So it's not the brain likes to think in automation.
Yeah.
So to remember things is not automated in most of the cases. So we should leave the brain to think.
In fact, there are schools of thought that are moving away from checklists.
Yeah.
When before we learned that it's good to have checklists, also when you tick off things off your list, you can activate some endorphins in your brain. Now they're moving towards more not having that type of checklist and having a more dynamic way of keeping lists. I still like lists, not lists. It's more like things I need to remember. Otherwise, I need to put them into my plan of how I'm going to work on them. So if you have, like, I don't know, some sort of project management Kanban or something like that, you can put it in there. But at least it's a thought that I had in my mind that I need to execute, I need to action on. Again, it's more for peace of mind, so you can say that I'm going to sleep now.
That's it.
Switch off, and then you can get to it another time.
When it comes to motivation, how does this motivate you? That having lists or staying organized, how does this link to your motivation levels?
I think it's more a matter of adapting to coping with work life. That helps. Because then when it comes to motivation, it's more understanding, having a good understanding of the business that really motivates me. So it's true I work in HR, and that is my main field, but I really feel that in our role as HR professionals, we need to understand the business inside out. So we need to have a good understanding of the objects of the business, how we operate, what tools we use across different teams. You're not going to be, head of tech in what I do,
sure.
but I need to understand what happens in tech, what happens in commercial, what happens in finance. I need to have that understanding. Also, what type of strategy we have as a business. And that's what motivates me. So that's balancing of understanding the business where we want to go, what goals we need to achieve, and helping the business get there to working with people. But that is the main underlying motivation that I have within my role.
How about on a personal level when it comes to things that we were discussing before the podcast? Everyone tends to procrastinate in some way, shape, or form. How making lists motivates you to that? We mentioned that there is that dopamine effect that you check the checklist and you cross things out. How does that affect your motivational levels?
The checklist doesn't give me a kick anymore,
All
to be
right.
honest. It's more understanding so on a personal level, I have quarterly targets that I need to reach. I have these objectives.
Okay. All right.
So that is like a KPI. If you reach it, you can exceed this. Like if you're working in recruitment, you need to close X amount of roles in a month. That's a nice number. But beyond that, it's also seeing people develop and yourself develop at the same time within the business. So once the business starts growing, you can feel that you can keep on helping people grow within the business and also yourself grow within that environment. I think that is what motivates me to really keep on taking those things off the list, because that is the effect. It's a result of all the hard work that goes in, but it's more a way of keeping myself organized rather than doesn't give me any sort of satisfaction. Anymore, perhaps. Before it used to be nice, tick, yes, done.
All right.
Now it's wider than that.
Yes, for sure.
So it's more like goal-based OKRs, call them what you want at the end of the day. That can keep you really motivated and going and understanding that you're on track at the end of the day.
Yes. I think it gives you a clear vision of where you are, what have you accomplished, and where you're going.
Exactly.
I share the same thought that the crossing of checklists is not as effective as it used to be.
It used to give me some, but now I think
you get used to it. Over the years, I found myself developing multiple strategies. So it depends on the mood, I guess. So I use different ways of structuring my goals. There are times where I write things down. There are times where I do checklists. There are times where I try to visualize them in my mind, sort of, and to reach them. It depends. The message that I want to pass is that there is no one size fits all, definitely, and you can have multiple techniques to reach the same goal. Because we are, as humans, we are very complex and dynamic as well. So we change quite frequently, or our moods have an effect on us as well.
Yeah, and I like to have goals, but because I innate I like that element of competition. That's sort of okay. Let's exceed them and let's go. Let's move forward. Because it helps you push. I mean, to push beyond where you should be, to push out of your comfort zone. Yeah. Because I mean, if there's no element of goals, objectives, then it becomes a bit bland. It's not that interesting. That is when then I would lose my interest, because it becomes repetitive, it becomes monotonous. That's something that doesn't motivate me in reality. So it's more like understanding that's where we need to go. If we achieve this, we can achieve that. We can do this, we can go. We can execute this because we would have achieved this goal. I mean, one thing comes after another. And it's the same thing in my personal life. I never like to sit pretty and do nothing. I'm always like, what's next? Because that's me. And with that, there's another growth and learning opportunity I think that maybe we can touch on as well, because it's worth mentioning, I think. Sometimes we need to celebrate our wins and live in the moment. I think we've lived in the 90s. You've lived in the 90s.
Yes, I did.
So, and we know how life was back then. It was a bit slower. Now it's become very fast-paced, both at work, personal life, news, media, everything has become very quick. And I think that is what we're missing on sometimes, to really enjoy the moment and live in them. Doesn't mean you need to, travel the world for 6 months and go backpacking in a remote area or don't have a phone, but really savor those moments of joy, of wins, even the small wins in life, because I think sometimes we're missing out, and it comes to this like reaching the next goal. What's next? Okay, we did this. What's the next?
We're stuck in the rat race.
100%. And I think that is something that we need to be mindful of, to really enjoy the satisfaction, enjoy those wins, both in our personal lives, both at work, and both as organizations. I think we need to really understand that's a big achievement. Let's celebrate it. Let's just announce it, mention it, because sometimes even that we forget to do, or acknowledge like, wow, yes, that's something that's I really need to do. And that was one of my only goal for this year, to live in the moment, to savor those small wins in life, to really understand where we can go. So you made me think about that.
What drove you to this place of how did you find yourself thinking about this and realizing that it's important to celebrate wins, and actually made it your focus for 2023?
Yeah, but I've been working now for a couple of years, and you go from one thing to another. Things in your personal life also evolve and develop. I got married, moved into a new house, and all these things add up. But last year there was a point like that I came at a crossroads in life and at work. So I had to do this major operation. I did heart surgery back in October, so almost a year ago. And at the same time, there were a lot of changes happening at work, and I also, ended up in between crossroads at work as well. So it was a moment of time where you had to handle things at work and where it was heading. Your personal situation of having this major operation, we don't know how you're going to get out of it. You hope everything will go well, but you don't know. And going through it all, doing the operation, going through everything, and then at the end when I knew I was leaving hospital, it hit me. Like everything almost collapsed in front of me. Like, oh, now it ended. Now everything ended. And going through all that experience, I said, I really need to learn to enjoy the little things in life.
How was it like getting to know that you need to do a heart surgery? What was your feeling at the time?
So I got to know when I started at Hero Gaming that I had, it was my first in-house HR job, that I had, I got to know by chance that I had this heart, a leaking valve basically in my heart, and you could live with it as long as you monitor it and everything. I couldn't do gym and these things, so I had to really slow down that, do more of cardio. So that was also a transition, but I adapted to that, and that was fine. And you start thinking of when you're going to do the operation, but you never really know until it hits you. You never really know what's going to happen. Then after like it was around 4 years of knowing, and then I said like I really wanted to start doing some gym and these things and some weight. So I went to a sports cardiologist, and he told me like, listen, I mean, if you want to do this test, we can do this like CPET test, where you do this test with oxygen and the bike. And I used to do this test when I used to do wrestling with MOC in Malta, so the national team, and I went to do this test, and the results were not bad. But when I compared them to where I was before when I used to compete, he said like, listen, like things are not good when you compare them. Like we should really look after it. Would you like me to take it up to the board? And things moved really quickly. So like in 2.5 months, 3 months, I went from think I didn't need to do an operation without going to the gym, from having to do this operation, which is a good thing. So there was a lot of positives in it in itself. And that I could do it, that was available, that I had access to that healthcare and what many positives you can take out. And that happened at the same time. There was a lot of changes at work where there was a whole reorganization reality. So two things happened at the same time, going full circle within Hero Gaming, I would say, starting a career in HR in-house there, and then getting to know about the heart condition and ending with that as well. So it was also a bit symbolic at the same time, doing that operation, having to know that. But I remember like my last night in hospital, like I had put on this calming music, like this, and it like took me into a different dynamic. And I said like I really need to focus on that, on celebrating the small wins and really living in the moment. That was the outcome of it all.
What was your not mindset, but how was your mental state at that time?
It was like starting a bit afresh, because I was in a position where I was, in essence, unemployed.
But going through the operation, I mean, it's a heart surgery, it's a major operation. How was your mental state at that time?
The first 2 days were, I won't lie, they weren't great, because it's impressive how fast your body regresses. So after 2-3 days in bed, I mean, you lose control over your neck, your posture. You're fully dependent on people and then you start getting out of it. But it was the first 2 days were not great. In fact, only like my wife, my mom, and a friend of mine who's a doctor used to come see me. And like the friend was like, "Listen, you really need to get." I really like know I need to get out, but I'm not in a good state. It's tough till you get out of it, till you start feeling that you're seeing progress and you can get out of things. Plus, you have a lot of things attached to you. And the fact that I had told the doctor, like, listen, if you really want to get better, start taking off these things, get me out of this bed, and then I'll get better. Because I didn't really want to eat.
There was a recovery period, so
definitely
it had to be done.
It had to be, and the recovery continued, but like, thankfully, I mean, then the body recovers quickly as well. So like after a week, I was back home. Then slowly start walking more. You can go up steps straight away when you go home. But then you start going for these short walks. You monitor your heart rate, and then you get back into it. And today, thankfully, like everything went well, and I'm almost fully recovered, I would say now. So yes, that's good.
How did? Obviously, in such situations, it's important to have a good support system, which from what you're telling me, I think you had. However, such a news and such a journey does impact the people closest to you. How did you handle that? You, and how did they handle it from their end?
I think in reality, I mean, what you said, you hit the nail on the head, that I think the people around you almost suffer a bit more than you. Because they're also going through it and they're not experiencing exactly what you're feeling. So I think they struggled the most throughout the whole experience, in reality, if you have to think about it. But I was lucky, as you said, I had a strong support system, family, friends, and you even realize as well that you have that. It's also a nice feeling to know that you have that support. And my mother, I remember, had just retired, and she didn't know exactly. She was not feeling that well. She said, like, I think it's time to slow down. And when I told her I have to, she said, that's why I knew there was a reason, like, deep down. So she was like fully immersed and committed to it all, which was great support, of course, especially since my wife and friends work as well. So at least I had her like almost full-time care. So that was good.
So now fast forward to today, you you feel that you are more grateful in life and more present. What sort of techniques have you implemented, or did it come naturally to you that you feel that this sense of groundedness in life?
That night, last night, also for me was like a huge eye opener. Like it was like a lot of things coming into place, like really emerging together, and say, like, listen, you really need to savor these moments. I mean, it's true that you're starting relatively from scratch in many ways, but you need to savor that. But sometimes you feel it now, like you say, like, I'm here on the beach enjoying the sunset, but am I really enjoying it? Am I looking at my phone? Am I catching up with my emails? Am I replying to Slack? And they say, like, you have to live in the moment. Like, you have to slow down. Don't do that. And I don't think I have perfected it fully yet, but I'm on the right track of really finding that balance of really saying, listen, like, now you're on holiday with your family or having Sunday lunch with your family, like, savor it, enjoy it, be in the moment. Because sometimes you're there sitting down, eating there, but your mind is elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding and being there, but genuinely being there. It doesn't need to be anything out of this world, but it's just really being present in the conversation, understanding, spending that time and savoring those moments, which I think make a lot of difference in finding that balance, finding that that good space that you can be in, that you can, I mean, still continue with your professional development, your life, and really maintaining and looking after your relationships in your life, and living in and being present in the moment. I think that makes a big difference.
I think from what you're mentioning, one word keeps popping up is that the importance of having some sort of an anchor that keeps us grounded to the present moment. And in your case, is the reminder or the feeling that you felt during your last day at hospital, is that how can we keep ourselves in the present moment? Because our minds tends to wander, even if we are relaxed. We start thinking of random things.
Yeah, that's where your mind really starts working, I believe, like your creativity.
And that is good. However, as you mentioned, we need to appreciate more the moments that we have, because they are truly, they can change in a split of a second. Yes, I think what I took from your story is that the importance of having an anchor. How can we keep ourselves present in that current moment, or the moment that we're living in? What keeps us there? What is keeping us there?
And it's understanding what that anchor is in reality. Because it's, I mean, in some cases it could be elements that religion keep you anchored, for example. Other people might have a hobby that keeps you really engaged with certain, or like sports, so you keep fit, and that really keeps you maybe anchored in living a certain lifestyle and way of working. You might have kids that can really give you a different perspective, but I think it's really understanding what that is, and making it work for you, because it's not the same for everyone. So
we need to develop that sense of introspection as well, because sometimes we might not dedicate enough time to reflect on ourselves and to really introspect and to ask certain questions to ourselves, even though they might be hard. So why am I behaving in this way? What are my thoughts and emotions to this situation, for example? Or what is this thing to me? What is this situation to me? Sometimes don't ask and ponder on these.
A bit of a retrospect. In fact, it's tips that we give to managers. Like, sometimes ask, like, how can I maybe give you feedback differently? How can I do things differently to support you more? Like, to give you that different perspective.
And that's where mentorship comes in as well. You mentioned mentorship before. The important thing is that the mentor, over time, you develop a good relationship with your mentor as well, so that the person can give you a slap in the face when you actually need it. Sometimes we need a wake up call. Everyone does. So although I'm very fond of introspecting, and I think that is very beneficial for everyone, we do have blind spots as well. And sometimes the wake up call can friends and family can give it to us, even though in some cases we value other third parties' opinion more than family and friends. But it's important to ask certain questions to ourselves. The challenge there, I think, is getting rid of the distractions, because we have many distractions. mainly one, our phone, which is a hub of many
Because it
distractions.
follows you everywhere. Everything's
Yes.
following you everywhere.
I think it's very tough because you mentioned that growing up in the 90s, life was slower at that time, and personally, we got our first. I'm the eldest son, so I always experience things at a later stage. That is the dynamic. That is the general rule. So I was around perhaps 13 or 14 when we got our PC. So I spent most of my childhood in my imagination and playing with physical toys at the time. So I got to experience that side of life. Fast forward 10 years, that is almost non-existent, and it's no wonder that people find it challenging to be creative in the real world and to find more comfort in the virtual one.
Yeah.
Because that is our childhood is totally different.
Because we had a mix of both in reality.
Yes.
Have you brought up in that digital world and speaking to people through video calls and all these things?
You don't know otherwise. That is the best thing that you know. And again, doing a bit of a full circle at work, and earlier we were speaking about the different generations at work. How do you manage the different generation, the different frameworks? Because a Gen Z cannot see what a millennial or a boomer can see, and vice versa in some cases. So there might a bit of not a miscommunication, but a communication barrier of some sorts that needs to be bridged.
I think the diversity adds a layer of advantage to the business. You have different generations in reality, different ways of doing things. But it's not always easy. So even like this maybe innate need of really getting things done straight away, maybe working long hours, we've seen there's a shift away from that in the maybe younger generations now. So I think we all need to understand, even leaders, managers, we need to understand these different generations, which it's true. You see a lot of funny videos on TikTok, but it's true. And you can feel it and you can see it. So we need to be mindful of it, understand what the parameters of how we work are, understand what our objectives are, what our goals, and what we're here to do. But then really understand that people have different ways of doing things. This can go into like flexibility at work, hybrid, remote, and all these things in reality. So I think it's a matter of understanding, listen, these are the objectives, and by using the same techniques of mentoring, coaching, and developing people to help them understand how they can execute the goals. So we're no longer in those, you have to do this way, A, B, C, D. You can mix them up, do it in a different way, do it in a different approach and a different flexible way of working. At the end, the execution is relatively the same. The result is the same, and the goals that we want to achieve are all the same. So I think it's being aware of different ways of working and different approaches to work and life.
And being willing to try different things as well.
And accept them as well. Because I think one of the biggest challenges we have with leaders who maybe have been working for a longer time, they're from a different generation. Sometimes you might get set in your ways and say, no, this is the way that you do it. But by broadening and opening your eyes to how things can work, you can see a different perspective. Case in point is like how we got hit by COVID and we had to change the way that we lead people. We had to go fully remote when generally we were resisting to be remote, resisting to hybrid. So we managed to do that. We managed it. It took a lot of strain on the managers, to be fair. In fact, we're seeing a lot of companies now backtrack to go back to the office. But we know that we can mix things up and be flexible. So I think that was a big eye-opener, that people can adapt, can change, but we need to be aware of the different...
Yes, we can't forget the skills that we've developed during COVID times as well. So
no, we shouldn't throw them all out. But we're still adapting, I think, to the new way of working, if we have to call it that.
I think our mindset was that we're reverting back to how things were, where in reality we are readapting, getting the things that we've used to do before the pandemic, and then getting the things that we've learned during the pandemic, and some way combine them together, because there was a lot of learning during the pandemic as well.
Definitely. And tied to that, I mean, we're also seeing this added flexibility, people wanting to work more like project-based, maybe not be committed to a full-time job anymore, the gig economy, people like doing their own business. So, I mean, we're seeing also that dynamic and change in the way of working. That's maybe the old 8 to 5, 40-hour full-time job is not what people are looking for in the younger generations these days. In fact, sometimes I ask them, like, what are the Maltese youngsters doing these days? Like in Malta, you had to go out and understand. I think the gig economy is on the rise, and you can see even like certain products coming out and developing. So it's interesting to see that development.
Their goals is different. From what I see, from my involvement in Scouts, their goals are different in life.
They've changed. No?
They want to enjoy life. They want to live life to the fullest. It might not necessarily be what we understand by consciously, or present or grounded, but they want to enjoy life. So many things are delayed, and we can start seeing it now. So marriage, have children, buying property, things are delayed. Many people want to travel. They want to experience life and what the world has to offer, basically.
Yeah, open to experience.
Yeah, and money has become a huge. It has always been a huge motivator, but I think it became a life goal to that extent. I had a recent podcast where the guest expressed that money is a tool, and it should be seen as a tool, that it will help you get from A to B. So it's not a means to an end, but rather it comes to you, not byproduct or as a byproduct, but your aim shouldn't be ideally to make money, but to do something good from which you can make money from. It's very idealistic and romantic.
I know my grandma used to say that money is not everything in life, but it's damn important, you know.
No.
So there is that element of importance in it. But if you're controlled by money, then it's a different. And you can see it even if you're offering a job to someone and things like that. I mean, if you're super money driven, sometimes it skews the way that you see things as well. So if you're just looking at the money, but you're failing to see the opportunity of growth that the role can give you, and the vision of where you can get, that is where I think maybe it cannot work. So sometimes you need to think a bit long term, because if you just see the short term, it's.
I think it happens with everything. Just we picked money as the topic, but
exactly.
All extremes are wrong. So we mentioned training, and I say this all the time. If you train too much, it's overtraining, and you're harming your body. You're doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
So a good thing can be have negative implications as well. So yes, money is good, money is important, and it's good to work hard in order to earn more money. But then if it becomes an obsession, a fixation,
that's right.
As you said, you start not seeing other important aspects, and I think that is where the damage will be done in a sense.
Recently I read this book, Ikigai. I'm sure that you've heard about it. I find that sense of flow and that passion and meaning in life. And that ties into, I mean, I think as long as you're really passionate about what, because it becomes a bit of an obsession. If you, want to become an excellent surfer, you need to really get into it. You need to see videos on YouTube. You really understand, live that life, live the surfer life on the beach. But you need to, in a way, get obsessed. But if it's done in the right way and you find that sense of flow, then it becomes a passion that can really help you really go into a different zone and switch off from what you're doing, or it might become your full-time gig in reality. But I think that sense of flow is where it gives a dynamic to the obsession, because sometimes I feel that unless you really get into something and to a certain extent get a bit obsessed about it, it's difficult to master.
Yes,
so
I think you have to go through it. And I think there was a video where Mr. Beast was interviewed. I'm not sure whether you saw it.
Mr. Bean or?
Mr. Beast.
Mr.
Beast.
All right.
Well, he was obsessed. About Mr. Beast and how he rose on YouTube. And it is very evident, and he mentions it very frequently, that he was obsessed with making it on YouTube, which he did. He became
and that successful people have become obsessed in what they do. I think it's a matter of finding that balance and that understanding. This is my sense of flow. And sometimes, I'm sure you've felt like you're doing something and you have a lot of hobbies.
Yes.
But you really get lost in it completely, and it's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
It's genuine. I mean, you literally lose track of time.
Yeah.
Now it means you're missing all your meetings and important family
Yes.
events, and then it becomes a bit of a problem.
Yes.
But if you find the right balance between how I can do it, but to really get into that sense of like really passion, I can spend, I don't know, a night editing this video, for
Yeah.
example.
There's a fine line.
Nice feeling.
It's a nice
It's
feeling.
a nice-
There's a
yes.
fine line. I think, but as you said, as long as it's not affecting your quality of life and negatively affecting your
The people
relationships
around
and the world around you, I think being very passionate about something, because that's the key word here, being very passionate or being obsessive.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the fine line between those two words, I would say, being passionate and being obsessive.
And then there's greed.
Yes.
Because if you read the book, like, and you read and you can see, like, if you go to a certain region in Japan, you'd see just like these type of knives, and they just do knives. They're obsessed with that. They're masters at it. They can do it excellently. Sometimes you say, okay, we're not doing knives. Let me do forks. Let's do it. And then you start getting, and this is as well with us, like really understanding, okay, what is important life. I'm managing 10 things. I think 2 things need to give.
Yeah.
What will I need to give up to make sure that I'm maintaining everything at a good level? And that is, I think,
but the Japanese culture is very focused on being a master of your own craft. So in order to become a craftsman, you need to spend 10 years as an apprentice. So Japan is very, very focused on being. They take pride in being a master and doing knives for 70 years and becoming a master in that. I think that they take pride, and there's nothing wrong with that, I believe.
No, I think it's that is where you become a true master in that. And
our culture is a Mediterranean one, so we like to experience different things, and they both have their own pros and cons, I would say. I can't imagine myself doing one thing only for my whole life. I think it's not for me.
Not even for me, to be honest. Maybe a hobby that
that is consistent throughout your life.
Yes.
Yes, but a career and that you're a craftsman on that, that's very.
And it's difficult to find someone who's going to keep that level of motivation. And I mean, you need to live it and live that certain lifestyle. I think.
I think it's because we were mentioning craftsmen. I think in the crafts realm, I think that is possible because locally we have the bitsilla makers, for example. It is or people who do the very feel on the local buses or
and the glass blower. I mean, there's a lot of
there's a lot of skills. I think that through that channel, through the artisan channel, I think you can be passionate and take it throughout your whole life, because the growth there is very slow. In a way, the mastering of the skill is very slow. So it's not like work. You start as a clerk and then you start climbing up the corporate ladder. That is
maybe you can see it a bit. It's more painted out for you or drawn out for you in an organization.
So I think it's very subjective when you become a master craftsman.
With the craftsman being a master, I think sometimes also we can see it in new generations that we're trying to rush a bit our own growth, and I think again that takes you back to enjoying and savoring the moment of your growth, because there's always something to learn if you really position yourself well and understand where you can keep on adding value. It's dynamic. If we rush through something, I think I've like burnt out this career now. What's next for me? Because you always feel, and do you imagine yourself doing the same thing for all your life?
Yes.
It's a bit more difficult now to imagine that maybe. Yeah. But if you really savor the moment that you're in, I think you manage to get the more out of it and to get the more like really sustainable growth in essence.
Sometimes we get stuck in the what's next,
what's next, and
what's next will come naturally, because at work, and you've shared this during this podcast as well, is that sometimes you would feel that you've burnt out the flame in a particular job. So, some people might say that the business outgrown you, or you outgrew the business. It's tomato in some cases, but you feel that you gave the business or yourself. There's a mutual ending sort of, and it's time for you to move on to something else. It's something that you feel, so we don't necessarily need to think about the what's next all the time when it comes to
No.
work, because when the flame dies, you would know that it's time for you to move on. So it's a more reason to savor the moment and enjoy your journey at your current employment in this case.
And there might be changes around you that, I mean, one, I think you feel that, like now is really time. I think I've reached this level. I think I've also maybe helped the team reach a certain level. So I'm happy now to step aside and see what's next. And sometimes there are also changes that are out of our control, like things that happen within the business, change in direction. So you know what? I think now I'm no longer the right person or this person that you need now. Now it's time to go to the next level. And that, plus the people, I mean, your mentors, your managers, people around you that also can offer to your development. They say, like, what, I think that person, I can learn more from them. Or they still have more to give me, and I have more to give them as a business.
Andrea, you've shared your goal for 2023. Where you would like to position yourself in 2024?
That's a tricky question.
I know that we're a little bit ahead of the end of year, but October is nearly upon us.
I don't usually set these sort of like end of year goals and stuff like that, in the sense that we really need to understand what position I'm at that point. But what do they call them at the end of the year? Resolutions. New Year resolutions.
No, I wasn't speaking about resolution, but where you want to be on a personal level, not necessarily on a career, but where you want to be.
I think it's a bit more of doing what I've started in 2023, to be honest, to really master that. I don't think I've mastered fully, but I've gone a long way. It's a long time. So I think it's really understanding that and finding some time to really maybe my boss won't like it, but maybe travel a bit more as well in 2024 to go out of the European continent in reality. I think that is one of my objectives. I think, and I want to balance that, of course, with work and understanding that. So I think that's otherwise I think I'm on an interesting journey in itself in my career at the moment and life. So it's a good position to be in.
You like to maintain it throughout the next.
I think it's a matter of maintaining what I've started. In 2023 there was a lot of changes in reality. But it's really maintaining that lifestyle. And definitely maybe starting gym now, those weights. So
they're calling.
Because it's something that I when you can't do something, I mean, if you can't do it, you want to do it.
You want to do it even more.
So now even more like I really want to just hit the gym a bit when the time is right. But I had to make sure that the timing is good as well for me.
Well, your health is top priority, so
exactly,
that
you can feel that you're good to go. But I remember like at 5 months I did 5K after 5 months, so it was
so it was a milestone.
And I started jogging again, so it was good. So that's good. But it's really like living in the moment, finding that balance, and understanding that you can find the balance between work and life, but still feel that you're developing and growing in your personal life and career. I think it's that.
Andrea, thank you for your time. It's been a lovely chat. Thank you for joining this podcast. Hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. So once again, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it a lot.